All right, well, we're going to talk about IPv6, and we have learned a whole lot in the past few months, and I think over the next couple of years, all of us have still got a lot to learn, and so that's one of the primary things that we're going to try to convey to you this morning, that this is an absolutely new animal, it's a new beast. You know, it's like you've been eating glazed your entire life. It's just you turn around and you get sprinkles. It's really different, and you got to be ready for it, and so we got 4 reasons here. Yeah, 4 small with a billion, right?
Jump right in, man. Tell them about the mandates.
All right, so we got a mandate coming next year, June 30th, 2008. The United States government is supposed to be IPv6 compliant. So we're going to talk about what that means and whether or not it's going to happen. Address space is one of the most interesting questions right up front. You're going from about 4 billion addresses to almost an infinite number of addresses.
Yeah, 340 undecillion. That means, you know, almost everything can be addressable. So we're moving into
there's 37 zeros.
Like a sci-fi realm of telematics. So, you know, we're combining the entertainment industry, the emergency, you know, incident response. You know, basically your windshield wipers will receive an email from the, you know, the weather, you know, channel, you know, and check, you know, if you're heading towards the direction of the storm, it'll know your GPS, you know, coordinates, and it'll check for your windshield washer fluid, and, you know, make sure that, you know, tell you to pull over and, you know, hey, refill, because in an hour you'll need it, you know. So, and security concerns, woo, I mean, that's scary. I mean, the bottom line is we're going to increase the attack surface by orders of magnitude, right? So imagine everything with a battery having an IP address. The idea is to have a host-to-host, you know, end-to-end connectivity. So, you know, things will have global IP addresses. You know, there's gonna be no more NAT, and, you know, privacy issues, All
right, talk about the new paradigm.
This is blowing my mind right now. Okay. Well, I already told them about
the
windshield wipers. Yeah. Actually, well, we got a little treat for you guys. So just to hook you in, I'll switch over to the. Okay, so on this screen, once it, okay, well, I guess we gotta do the VGA cable. Yeah, tell them about the error. Jump in. I'll switch this meanwhile.
What do you mean? Something about IP config?
Yeah, no, tell them about the error. Continue about the.
Oh, the V6 error. All right, we're gonna jump back while he's hitting F5 there. Okay. Completely different, as we mentioned before. The extensibility is huge. There's all sorts of room built in to do new things and to apply the protocol in different ways. You ready to go?
Yeah. Why don't we switch over? We got a little treat for you guys here. This is the latest version of Microsoft Vista Beta 2. I picked this up on Wednesday at the Microsoft booth. I don't remember what the build number was. It was kind of long, but. Installed it on this little computer, you know, basically a little, you know, mini ITX-based, you know, machine that, you know, could do GPS and email and, you know, Microsoft Office and boot Linux and, you know, do whatever you want in your car. But right now it's running Vista, so I'm kind of new to this. It's got a snazzy interface, you know, beautiful graphics. You know, you get this default.
All right, go, man.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's dig around a little bit. We got a. Let's jump into IP config, see what that looks like.
Everybody done IP config before? You know what it looks like?
All right, so basically in Vista, IPv6 comes installed by default, and it is enabled. In XP, the support is there, but it's not enabled. So you got to basically type in IPv6 space install, and boom, it'll, you know, 2 seconds later, you know, it's running. But in Vista, it's already enabled. So the way you can check it is you just do ping, you know, ::1 for loopback, and woo. It's there. You can do the same thing on your XP box, except you got to type ping 6 space, you know, : Now, unfortunately, this network, you know, we weren't sure if they could support V6 tunneling, because obviously it's V4 here. We were going to use a transition mechanism to see if we can connect to a V6 website, but it seems like the goons, you know, well, they tried. They tried hard, so, you know, we thank them for that. But it looks like we don't have connectivity, but one good test you could do is try to ping www.ipv6day.org.
on there, man.
Woo. Okay, I knew I shouldn't have had that beer. So that comes over V4. You can force 6-6 flag. Woo. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to look lopsided here. Does that look right? Okay, I got a space there. Thank you. Ooh, so the address resolved. Look at that. but we can't reach it because I think they're not allowing tunneling here probably. It means you got to allow protocol 41 tunneling or allow Teredo. Maybe they're blocking Teredo ports. So we'll get into that. We could also try to paste this address into the, into Internet Explorer. You got to have the little square brackets now. Imagine that. Ooh. It's not coming through. But last night from the, ooh, what's that? Looks like we got connectivity all of a sudden. So this kind of quirky. Obviously, this is beta, right? So now it's working. So that's kind of cool. Let's go to ipconfig again. Ipconfig-all. All right. Oh, look at all that. What is all this stuff on by default? Okay, so we recognize this part right here. Okay. Okay, we got Teredo on. Okay, 1 second. I think it's all there. We got all kinds of new stuff now, 3 and 5. I mean, this is on by default. I didn't set any of this up. This is just a fresh install. All right, well, I guess we got enough digging around here. Let's see if we can pull up that site. Okay. Something's not coming up. Well, we'll get back to it. We'll play with it later. Let's jump back to the slide. But anyway, this was a little treat for Vista. This was totally on plan, experiment we want to show you. Vista's got this stuff,
Okay, so just hit the vulnerable on this slide. IPv4 is already at a stage where they can charge you for every, a lot of services. They're saying, okay, another $5 and we'll give you another address, right? Well, with V6, there is about 50 octillion addresses for every human on the planet. So if IPv4 is about the size of a skyscraper, IPv6 is about the size of 400 billion planet Earths. Dude, this is your slide.
Ooh, okay, so we have actually a chance to start fresh. IPv4, nobody thought it would last that long, 20 plus years, almost 30 years. And the idea, it wasn't designed for a large network. It was kind of built ad hoc, nodes one on top of another. Now we have a chance to start fresh, with V6. So we could do hierarchical addressing. We could allocate blocks in a specific manner to expedite routing. And here you can see that we're going to have an orbital net, a subsurface net, interplanetary net. So you got to get in line to get your IP address from Mars now. So basically, based on your prefix, you'll be able to tell what network you can exist in. So I mean, totally new approach here. So tell them why some people hate this thing.
Okay, there's plenty of critics. We don't want to sit up here and pretend like this is a really great direction or this is the only direction we have to go in. There's sort of a lack of a migration strategy, and a lot of people are really frustrated with the fact that it's an alternative, it's not an extension. So you can't really say, I'm going to go slow toward IPv6. You actually have to do sort of an about face and move in a new direction. But then a lot of people are upset about that, but that's part of the point of it, is that there were all of these shortcomings of IPv4, but there are all these things we wanted to do in the future. And so the new protocol is meant to address the bad old stuff and the new possibilities.
Yeah, so we track through the history a little bit. IPv4 again was very resilient because it was very simple. It was kind of dumb, as some of the founders have called it, and that's why it was resilient. Back in the day, there was actually a controversial battle between the Gossip protocol and the Internet protocol. Gossip was heavily government-backed. It was very bloated because contractors and vendors could definitely make a buck on making it more bloated, right, and providing support. But IP won. So the question is IPv6 another government-backed protocol, or is it hype? Is it just hype? Will it die just like maybe service-oriented architecture? I mean, things come up left and right. So let's take a step back and take a look at the big picture. The bottom line is we are running out of V4 address space. Some countries like India, you have to go through 9 levels of NAT. And some third world countries have IP address space that's less than a given American university. So, bottom line is V4 is old, and maybe it's time for a change. In fact, NAT was created as a workaround to to solve the address space problem. And some people rely on that for security, which don't ask me why, but but at least maybe for obscurity. But okay, and now two bright individuals proposed the next version. Almost more than 10 years ago now. So V6 is not brand new. Actually, some trivia: V5 was just a audio video streaming protocol. They accidentally named V6 V7, but they caught the mistake. And obviously, the goals were to expand address space, optimization of routing, a lot of customization and security in mind, of course. So here's you can see the two lines in V4 and V6 in parallel. Basically, everything from the first exhaustion prediction in early 90s of the address space to the next generation of the internet proposal, and finally some government decisions to get their networks to be compliant or be able to provide support. So there's a lot where that comes from too, in terms of what is the definition of compliance. Does it mean that you actually run V6 traffic, or are you just providing support? So there's many much confusion about definitions. So well, okay, I don't know if it's too early for math, but I'll try. Okay, we got some big numbers, but the bottom line is each person on Earth, right, 6.5 billion people, could have 50 octillion addresses to themselves. Okay. So I hope that wakes you up. Towards the bottom, you see some V6 addresses. If this is the first time you've seen one, they're long, and you can actually.
How long does it take to type one? And can you make a mistake when you're typing one?
Yeah, I typed myself 3 days ago. It took me on average 30 seconds, and I was trying hard to type a full V6 address in, and then after I typed it in to validate it, quickly back and forth before I hit enter. I mean, if those of you with keyboards in front of you, just see how long it would take you, type in a full address. Well, you can't see with the zeros, but imagine a complicated address. I feel bad for the guy that has to do, ACLs, Okay. Well, jump back one sec real quick. So you concatenate by doing a double colon. So the two addresses towards the bottom are the same. Kenneth will talk more about privacy, but let's keep moving. So, okay, we got your standard graphic. Here's you can notice some differences. There were some fields ripped out from V4 to V6. V6 seems much more elegant. Seems simpler. Just we have a quadrupled source and destination address space. Towards the bottom, you can see that the one fundamental difference is the next header field, which actually moves the header options to the payload section. So that makes it very flexible. So now that you have in the payload section where you put the data, you can come up with your own types of headers. So that allows for much customization. So. And you could also daisy chain headers, so you could put one header, then next header field, another header, next header, and so on. You could have as many nested headers. So that's fun when you start playing with tunnels and you start encapsulating tunnels within tunnels. And woo, okay, let's keep moving.
Packet structure.
Okay, so. Okay, well, we covered the extended headers, and you could again improve quality of service. One fundamental difference is fragmentation is done on the host, on the destination host. So it's no longer done on the routers. Okay, big difference. So routers now will grab the fixed packet headers, which are at 40 bytes, not the variable length headers in V4. Read that and make a routing decision. They will not have to parse the packet. Okay, big difference. There's all kinds of complicated jumbograms and advanced features in V6 that you can go read about. We can't spend there's hundreds of RFPs at this point, RFCs. So, yesterday we tried to stump the panel a little bit. One of my buddies asked the following question at the TCP/IP drinking game. I don't know how much V6 traffic they get, but that was a long question. It was worth 10 drinks. And I don't remember what the answer was, but it had to do something with extension headers and hop-by-hop jumbograms. Okay, so it's okay, so it's okay, and some differences from V4 to V6. There's no trace route alternative anymore. So those of you old schoolers that were used to this, to the IP record route option, you can't do that anymore. No broadcast addresses. We have complicated multicast addresses. So, again, the multicast, you can spend a whole college semester on that. But the bottom line is, it's you can broadcast to specific groups of IPs to within a network. So it's like your limited sub broadcast groups. No uptime check anymore, so okay, so that's gonna hurt us with scanning a little bit, but the header's still in the clear, so woo, good news. Okay. And you hear a lot of talk about built-in security with V6, so that's your silver bullet. Well, they're mostly they're referring to IPsec, okay? So that's an encryption. That's a cryptographic protocol, and the bottom line is what mandatory IPsec for V6 means simply is that if you're writing a V6 stack, you have to provide support for IPsec. Doesn't mean that the network will automatically run IPsec. So the bottom line is, your V6 stacks out there will have IPsec support, but how many people will actually use it? I mean, IPsec, there's a public key, algorithms involved, and if any are familiar with trying to deploy, a global public key infrastructure, you got to solve that problem first before you try to introduce IPsec, global, brokerage of tunnels. So, I'm sorry. All right, so the question was, what about opportunistic encryption if it's available to a specific host? So it is not that hard to set up tunnels between, the idea is to have host-to-host connectivity. So you can set up manual tunnels between, you and somebody else on the other side of the planet, or somebody's toaster or refrigerator, and the traffic will be encrypted. So you can manually set up tunnels as long as the network will allow for IPsec tunneling. So that is allowed. The problem is it's not scalable because you're deploying them manually. So you need to have tunnel brokers that can negotiate keys between two hosts and between each session. And if you're running, two web browsers and you're looking at 10 different web pages, you got to have a different key for each session. So imagine that on a global scale. So, okay. Well, there's IPsec was actually originally created for V6 in mind, and it was backported in V4 because V6 was so slow in getting rolled out that it was backported. So the idea again is to have if we can start fresh with the new model of internet, we could try to have trust on a network where through the use of tunnels you know who you're talking to. There's authentication, and the idea is to create a trusted network, so as opposed to V4 where everything's kind of ad hoc. Gentleman says very few BGP sessions are encrypted with IPsec. So there's some more from the trenches. So good luck deploying IPsec, but we'll see. Let's move it. Let's move it. Yeah, who's going to control the keys? So,
especially, well, we'll get to that in a second, but on the international level, who is going to control the keys, right? And so that's a huge limitation, the widespread implementation of this stuff, because once you get to the nation-state level, one country is not going to allow another country to control its keys.
There's plenty of use your imagination in terms of the pros of IPv6 because it's extendable. You think of ad hoc networking, mobility, the ability for you to have your own unique unicast global IP address that you can just, you can pick up and travel to travel across seas and plug in a network and you'll have the same exact global unique IP address. So use your imagination. And again, if we start fresh and we do it right, if addresses are allocated correctly, you can think of it as zip codes. You can have prefixes. You specify, have relation to a specific, geospatial, coordinate for a certain group of V6 addresses. So imagine 1,000, different users from, an enterprise going, surfing, say, a web server, at site B. Well, that's in V4 traditionally. There's no way to kind of, there's no automated way to control the sessions. There's to be thousands of different paths. In V6, you can have bulk sessions. So the idea is to have all those. Why not have all those 1,000 sessions? Viewing from a browser, at site A, viewing on a server at site B. why not bulk them together and channel them through the most optimized path? So I mean, the idea is to approach it from that perspective. Mobile devices, everything. Telematics, we mentioned earlier, the idea of combining, entertainment, incident response, emergency systems, everything with a battery to have an IP address. Okay, there's also obviously some negative aspects that come to mind right away. Again, some people are disturbed by recognizing that there was no more NAT. Some people rely on NAT. They love NAT. That's probably sometimes it's their first layer of security. There's no more NAT in V6. Well, there are some exotic ways to do that, but there's no point. If you have 50 octillion addresses just to yourself. There's many migration technologies that during the phase of introducing V6 traffic into your network, you're going to end up having V4 and V6 at the same time. So now you got to think about how your sensors will watch traffic on both stacks. How are you going to watch tunneling? I mean, there's many migration will increase the attack surface by orders of magnitude. There's IPsec is great, but then what about the sensors? What about negotiating the keys with the sensors, with your IDSs, with your firewalls, with your host-based solutions? Now, if you have encrypted sessions, end to end, your sensors are blind, so you got to include brokerage mechanisms that will share the keys with the sensors. So, and that's complicated stuff. Ooh, I'm getting scared. Okay, let's move it.
All right, so we kind of given you an introduction to some of the issues that are at play on the tech side, but anything this important on the tech side, you can imagine, has significant implications for governments around the world. National security issues, ability to sort of control and come to the aid of your populations, to control military forces, to run expensive satellites in space. One thing, often say DoD drives technology, just like NASA sort of drove so many things over the past few decades that sort of came out into everyday life. Warfare, that said, itself, like everything else, is completely networked today. So the very nature of warfare is network-centric, down to the number of bullets and the sticks of butter you have to give to your troops. All of that needs to be controlled via the networks. Now, obviously, for a military, that's going to lead to a better operational picture and more flexibility in the battlefield. At home, a big question is whether or not this is going to allow governments more or less control over their own populations. And the question is important, but also very philosophical in nature. I mean, from one standpoint, you say, great, we're moving to the encrypted internet, so my private communications are going to be secure. On the other hand, there's going to be more static IP addresses, right? And so it's going to be easier to track you back. And we'll talk about the People's Republic of China and how they're viewing IPv6 as important to their national security picture. In the real world, we have emergency response issues that are very important, not to the top level of national security, but to the folks who run law enforcement and fire and disaster recovery. So one of the important examples is called MetroNet 6. And again, the basic thing it incorporates Metropolitan Network IPv6, is short for, is that handheld devices for pretty much everybody who's involved in emergency response, disaster recovery, available year-round, that would connect everybody. And one of the important aspects of this is ad hoc command centers. So in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else, there could be sort of from the top all the way down secure communications between folks. And of course, this is pre-9/11. There was so much flack. The CIA and the FBI didn't speak to each other. Well, they spoke different languages. They didn't trust each other. If implemented correctly, you could see how IPv6 would lead to more trust. You could even have a sort of an intel group talk to a policeman on the street, right, and pass them information securely. Hey, look behind you. The IPv6 mandate. So a year from now, June 30th, 2008, there is a significant element within the United States government decide this is important enough that you're going to do it, period. It's interesting in that after that, another major body responsible for looking at IPv6 turned around and said, whoa, this is not even a good idea at the present time. In fact, if we do it too early, it's going to lead to increased costs and reduced security. The two are the OMB, which is associated with the White House, and we're operating on a White House initiative, and the Department of Commerce, which was looking at it from more of a tech perspective. American companies really is in a funny position, right? You would think that they would be driving this, for many reasons, for market share and for research and development. However, they're kind of stuck with the lion's share of IP addresses, right? So they've got so many IP addresses they don't know what to do with them, and they're still, however, fully natted. So that's sort of an irony of the thing. But we got a ton of IP addresses. I mean, just for example, Stanford University has more IP addresses than China. So there is not really a shortage on the American side. There are reasons, though, to switch to IPv6. Companies are very interested in reducing the rendezvous servers and the developer time that's necessary to do all of the coding that is involved with natting. So when you're developing, Xbox games, when you're looking at Vista, all of this, very expensive to develop. So IPv6 they see as a way to increase, the facility of allowing P2P connectivity. And so toward that end, Microsoft's offering $100 million for developing software and programs that would fit this model for Vista in the future, in case you're interested. Let's move to the People's Republic of China. So, in the United States, the shift is mandate-driven currently, right? Well, in many other countries, it's purely market-driven. They need the address space. You look at India, it's worse than, China. But you look at in China, they already don't have enough IP addresses for everybody who's online. They need the space in a serious way. It's also a big effort as China modernizes very quickly to develop a serious indigenous intellectual property, and everybody's participating. They are somewhat sluggish today, and really the prime factor, and this is somewhat disappointing for the Chinese IPv6 team, is that there's just lack of applications, and so you can see how that's a problem. So finally, in regards to the PRC, and it's not just to bash the PRC, but this is a problem for all nation states, is sort of the balance between privacy, consumer freedom, and the need for law enforcement to prosecute crimes. So in the Chinese case, we've got some things to look at. Okay, they already station police at internet cafes, and they're already on the lookout for things like sweatshop videos that will indicate that they're not playing fair by international labor laws. And then on the criminal side, you have them openly saying IPv6 is important for us to assure that we reduce crime in the country, and it's specifically through the better tracking of individuals through static IPs. Some colorful stuff between America and China is you see a lot of collaboration, a lot of acquiescence between our major companies, because they want the market entry into China, and there's no way they're going to get there without providing China with what they need, just like Microsoft provides them with the source code, right? In order for them to buy the operating system, they're not going to buy it otherwise. Google and Yahoo, they have helped prosecute individuals in China, by offering, personal information upon request. Now, at least one U.S. congressman is, comparing this to World War II collaboration with the Nazis. Europe is moving forward. This is much more market-driven. There's a lot of investment there. They've got some of the same stuff we've got going on the emergency response side, and some of the same issues with, okay, we've come this far, so what now? Can we have more money to invest? Or they don't really, there was complaints that they didn't see the visible, tangible rewards so far with IPv6. Here is a concept car, and again, IPv6 makes these things possible. We talked about it earlier with the windshield washer fluid, but really you can network everything, right? And so you can be plugged in to many different things. You can even have ad hoc network connectivity, everybody in the car, and then between cars. If a car is approaching you too fast, you could know that. If your son is 16 years old, is driving too fast, it sends you an email quickly, right, and lets you know. So there's a lot of possibilities. The Japanese side is different from the Chinese example in that in China they need the address space for people. In Japan it's electronics, right? They've got so many things. It's an absolutely gadget crazy country. So they want to address all this stuff so it can talk to each other, so it can talk with the companies, so they can talk with their friends. So they've been at this for a long time. As early as 2000, they identified IPv6 as critical to the future of an e-Japan. And they do hold the world records, the University of Tokyo, both in IPv4 and in IPv6. And they're putting money into a taxi pilot programs so that when visitors and when travelers come in, they can see the immediate value of the new network connectivity. In India, it's very interesting. I just mentioned one thing, so the companies want to have a V6 test bed, right? And so there's a bit of a controversy on whether or not they're going to open it up to the world or have it sort of as their own thing. Obviously, the major international telecoms providers want to play in this, but there's a big element there that want to keep it close hold and pay just real close attention to national security issues and sort of proprietary information there. South Korea already owns trillions of addresses. This is an issue, say, for instance, for Africa. Africa, there's a lot of countries that really benefited from cell phones, satellite phones, VSAT. All of this stuff was really beneficial because they didn't have a lot of landline in countries, right? So this is a huge step forward for them. And in the same way, IPv6 should also help certain countries with hardly any network connectivity at present. There's going to be plenty of addresses to go around. Okay, here's a slide. I just thought I would check quickly to see, within government domains. So we have .gov, right? Well, France has gouv.fr, and every country has their government address space. So these are the IPv6 hits within the address space. So I was a little bit surprised, but this was as of yesterday. The USA came out on top, but maybe a bit of a surprise. South Korea came in second, but very, very close. But then you have China, Japan, Taiwan are all next. What does that tell you, right? Asia is seriously investing in IPv6. Some countries, I mean, it's shocking. Czech Republic, I mean, if you've ever been there, what a terrific place, right? But 0 hits, none.
You mistyped it. I think you mistyped it.
I did not mistype it. I did not mistype it. I checked it, in fact, several different ways. So interim analysis, okay, it's very different, between the PRC and the USA, right? There's a lot of investment in China. It's very visible. They talk about it all the time. It's crickets on our side, but you have to realize the different economic models very much pertain here. And in China, you don't do anything without government support. So it could very well be, and we talked with a real big shot in IPv6 world, who said that the behind-the-scenes American industry is almost certainly the #1 spender and investor in IPv6. You really just don't see it. So it may be just slightly different models here. In our country, in the United States, it is going to be more market-driven, and we'll see how that plays out. It's going to cost money, for sure. And you may be wondering, what's this going to cost my company, right? So the Department of Commerce report, which was more technical in nature and really got more into the weeds, said if you have 8 core routers, 150 switchers, and 4 firewalls, it may cost you $2 million. But yeah, lots of other people saying this is absolute nonsense. You're going to take care of all of this for no money at all. It's all going to happen within tech refresh, right? So hardware, software that's coming out now is IPv6 compatible, right? So you're primarily going to have to invest in some training and in some awareness. And one of the things we're going to suggest to you later is that maybe your organization just taps a couple of folks to get up to speed on the IPv6 issue, because it's not going to do you any good to jump in with both feet, but you're just going to want to watch this issue and know where you should be. there's a real interesting comparison between Y2K and IPv6. There's a lot of people who think that, that it's way overblown and then you're better you're not paying attention at all to IPv6 and it'll just go away. But almost certainly it's going to require some smart resource decisions on your part, and there are going to be some niche admin skills, such as typing these long addresses, that may come in handy. On the privacy side, there's just differences, and some of this is cultural. It's real interesting. A lot of times when you look at, warfare, espionage, politics, police work, a lot of culture comes in. And so in Asia, they're going to have a less of an expectation in general for privacy in your daily life. In some languages, privacy, I think my wife studied Chinese for years, and I can't quite remember now, but I think in the languages, you don't even know how to describe privacy, right? You don't even know where to begin because it doesn't exist, right? So, in Europe, much more. There's some sectors that absolutely demand it. In our country, we still have the death penalty, right? So, we love our privacy in this country, but we also feel like, if he's a criminal or we think he may have committed a crime, shoot him.
Well, actually, it might be worth mentioning. It might be worth mentioning that there is the EUI-64 field in the address where you take the lower 64 bytes, and essentially you rip off the MAC of the NIC, and you insert the additional bits that are somewhat randomized. So you take the MAC, and then in the middle you slap on some randomized bits to give yourself, in a sense, privatized address. So there is that, and it makes it complicated for large enterprises to deploy because they can't keep track of their assets that way. So whether that's going to happen, it will be prevalent or not, is another issue. So.
Okay, internet management, we're kind of running short on time, but basically you've got the registries, you have the internet management bodies, and let me just show you some of what they say, because we don't know. They're just still charting the course for this. So it's more like, I want to move in this direction, and we'll figure out how to get there as we go. But some of the things, they really want aggregation. They want a network infrastructure that's hierarchical in nature and that is planned, right? And that is not sort of Wild West and just, but it's tough, and we can give you a couple examples already. It's starting to move in a very sort of crazy way. They want everything to be unique worldwide, so that it's not behind a net and it's not obscure and it's not difficult to trace somebody back, which has all kinds of implications, obviously. They want everything to be registered. They want it to be fair and equitable. So, for what that's worth. They want us to avoid wasteful practices so that we don't begin to waste IP addresses as we've done in the past. Now, you can leave that to yourself to wonder whether that's really an issue anymore. There is something called the IPv6 Ready logo, and these are the 5 things that you can actually get tested to acquire this logo. But just a quick search for the logo this week yielded plenty of Chinese addresses, and more so perhaps up front than the English addresses. But very interesting here. Some people are after the logo. One other thing, this is very interesting. To acquire the logo, a lot of people wanted IPsec to be intrinsic to it. You got to have IPsec before you get the logo. And the PRC, China, said, no, it needs to be optional. We want the logo without IPsec being mandatory, and they won the debate. So part of the thing to think about here is whether or not other countries or other interested privacy groups, somebody, raise your hand, should have weighed in on that debate and argued the flip side and tried to win the debate. However, the debate's been settled, and IPv6 again is optional.
And Ready Logo 2, I believe it's in the works. That might actually have IPsec. I think the international community, finally stood up and tried to influence standards. So, something to look out for. The current status of V6 deployment, where is it now? Some of you might have heard of the 6bone. Well, 6bone.org website, as of I think first week of July, has announced that they've discontinued essentially the project because that first essentially experimental testbed for V6 doesn't need to exist any longer because we're moving to the real V6 internet. So the 6-bone has been discontinued. Now if you go to IPv6day.org, that is a quick little wiki to with some cookbook steps on how to get connected for free right now today. And so goodbye 6-bone. Now the expectation is that V6 internet is spreading physically across the world. No, the experimental stage that label has been ripped off. So again, obviously we cannot jump straight into V6 and we can't flip a switch. Majority of our networks are V4 only right now. So I think it's important to distinguish between a difference of tunneling mechanisms that allow you to do V6 over V4 networks. There's also a term native V6, which means your hardware can handle the V6 stack. So then you can run dual stack hardware, which can talk both V4 and V6. And eventually we'll have native only V6, and we'll treat V4 as as legacy. And we're going to tunnel V4 probably over V6. But I think that's I think light years from now. But I think V4 will stick around for a long time. But imagine all the combinations of these heterogeneous environments where you have V4 only, V4 with V6 tunneling, V6 native only, dual stack. I mean, imagine the combinations of the environments that could exist. And there's obviously some tunneling protocols that are listed on the right. Now, what exists out there right now that can support V6 as of today? Most companies, there's very few robust stacks out there. Most companies just buy them from third parties. So whether the stacks have been tested, there's still, I'm surprised that 6-bone is gone. I'm actually very surprised, but I guess the experts are expecting that there's some implementation of the stacks that are ready. There's it's worth mentioning that the two Asian projects, Kame and Usagi, Kame being Japanese for the tortoise, and Usagi being Japanese for the rabbit. Two projects that kind of race to complete the V6 modules for the the Unix kernel for Kame and for Linux kernel for Usagi. And as the the moral of the story is that Kame finished long before the Linux version, and Usagi is still very buggy. So Linux support is it's out there, and I believe after 2.4 it's already included, but it is very buggy, especially if you try some of the advanced features like auto configuration. So the moral of the story is BSD finished way ahead.
All right, these are real stories of tech support, right? So you want to try it real quick?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm tech support. I say, hi, this is Comcast.
Hi, I'd like to subscribe to your internet service for my residence, specifically IPv6.
Sure, why not?
Well, could you double check if you actually have native V6?
3 minutes later. Do you have a Mac, sir? IPv6 is for Macs.
Okay.
Okay.
I wish we could record this, but legalities.
It was illegal to record it. Okay, Verizon. Verizon.
Same thing. Do you guys have V6?
Sure.
Could you check if you actually have native V6?
Well, you're talking about the mobile internet, where you can connect no matter where you are.
No.
You mean fiber? They're laying fiber everywhere.
Well, the medium doesn't matter. Fiber's a plus, though.
I don't know. You need a static IP, but we don't offer that since we're DSL. I know our sales folks, they told you to call me, but they know what we offer.
Well, yeah, they forward me to you. Okay. So obviously, your browsers, your applications will need to have updates. So there's, developers will need to learn, the new protocol. There's some actually some interesting, parsing issues now with browsers having to accept colons and square brackets. You can use your imagination. The industry is still slow. The standards are not being pushed. We just organizations are taking what they can. There's a lot of room for snake oil products. It's important, I think, for large organizations to push for standards, for people to speak up, because right now it's the industry does not provide much in support. Again, some trends to expect. As V6 will come around, your average new hires. for your network specialists to, have, a couple years of, V4 experience. I mean, I barely know V4, but hey, I'm a CSSP, so I think, I'll be able to handle the V6, right? Well, new hires will have zero knowledge in V6. Actually, quick little maybe trivia. Does anybody know what the double colon, the nickname for double colon is? Fill with zeros?
No, but you know what it's called? A
box? Yeah, no, we don't know. We're just surveying. We actually, because we had this.
Actually, we wondered if there's a name for it. We couldn't find one for weeks. Okay, there you go. The double colon is a box.
Okay, that's cool. We thought we needed another RFC for the name because you're going to be saying it so often, colon, colon, colon.
What about a
double
colon? A colon by itself? Colon. But see, there's 2 syllables. So there's room there if anybody thinks of something catchy.
Okay. Well, we could go ahead.
Go, see what he said? On IPv6, go by what the Japanese do.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so where are we going to expect the attack methodologies to to move in what direction? If IPsec will become prevalent, then the certificate authorities that will hold the keys will essentially become targets. DNS will become an obvious target because that'll be the primary primary source for network administrators to keep track of all their assets, and especially with the auto configuration and privacy addresses, you will need the DNS will become a primary target. So maybe DNSSEC. I mean, there's some interesting solutions for hardening the DNS servers. So we need to look out for that. There's a client-side exploits that essentially addresses the fact that because of host-to-host connectivity and the inability to scan large address spaces anymore, the idea will be to target the host directly. So myriad of security concerns. Actually, if you could switch real quick to switch the box. If we have Vista up, we have let me show you. Something interesting I found yesterday. Let me pull it up for you. I took a screenshot. I was just going through the properties in Explorer, and wait for it to boot up. So we actually got to get moving here. Ooh. So there was a lot of link local problems. That is a very interesting area. Essentially, you could think of your layer 2 attacks. Essentially being moved up, to the next level. So there's gonna be a lot of our poisoning, our cache poisoning on the next level. So it's an interesting area to get into. Something to look forward to. Actually, there's a screenshot. So basically, I went to IPv6 webpage, clicked properties on a GIF, and what is that garbage right there in the protocol? I highlighted that. So I mean, interesting. I mean, granted, it's a beta, but that's kind of confusing. Again, large attack surface. There's a migration will probably cause a chaotic environment.
And again, the attack surface is increased. That's the whole thing. It's getting much larger, especially during the period where you're going to have to run both simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. So let's keep moving. The sensors, again, will need key negotiation. So you need tunnel brokers. There's many exotic ways to do that. It's complicated. We can go ahead and move on. There's what are the current hacker tools out there? Current attacks. There's a suite of tools by the THC group. Van Houser has actually published some interesting, the first, I think, IPv6 attack suite, which is very interesting. I played with it, immense results. It's worth playing with. It works. I mean, the bottom line is it works. Man-in-the-middle attacks, flooding the network with a lot of garbage traffic. Relaying, essentially inserting yourself in the route, stealing addresses, because anytime in auto configuration when you want to grab an IPv6 address, it checks for duplicate address detection. Well, you can constantly say, "Oh, I'm it." You can constantly grab, IPv6 addresses. So a lot of interesting stuff. Go check out THC. There's, I think I can't do him justice, but it works and it's worth it. And our next iteration of our presentation, we're actually compiling a list of 30+ tools right now that libraries that they could that could allow you to do some vulnerability assessments and pen testing in V6.
So one of the things just to realize about compliance is it's sort of really been watered down, and it's, compliance, I'm sure, initially was, hey, we're going to get squared away with this thing. Now it's pretty much, the core networks are going to need to support IPv6, and probably the minority of networks, within the USG may be there by then. Oh, the IPv6 Ready logo, the politics are highly charged. There's still a lot of decisions to make, and they're very important. So you want to make sure that you realize sort of the points of future tension and sort of weigh your voice in now. Here's some recommendations. Again, this will be on the DEFCON website this week. These are some of the recommendations that we've come up with for you and your organization.
And the bottom line, first thing is that you might have rogue v6 traffic on your networks right now. So go back and check. The first thing is turn it off. If you don't need it, obviously turn it off, and then test it, depending on your requirements, allow it, slowly for, specific purposes if needed. But first, turn it off. Turn off tunneling in v4. Even if if you don't have v6 hardware, your tunneling might be allowed. So you want to block protocol 41. You want to block Teredo ports, and essentially first ensure that you don't have any rogue traffic, because Teredo is certainly worth mentioning. It's Microsoft's spec that could essentially exploit NAT through UDP. It can give your machine behind a cone NAT a global IPv6 address for connectivity. So I think a lot of the online games have motivated that. So it's funny is in the spec for Teredo, it actually mentions that this should be your last resort. Okay.
Should we show the demo slides?
Sure. Yeah. I think we're running out of time for a demo, but if anybody's interested, you're welcome to come up and chat with us about the V6 pack. Was our prototype. We actually originally was going to be on a Nano ITX board running embedded Linux, but we salvaged their computer that's running mini ITX, and with the spirit of telematics, the idea is we have analog sensors with a Java API that if you lift the last beer in your in the fridge, it can send an email message to your cell phone. So it's just a toy, but
Big thanks to Dolomite sitting over here for helping us out with the computer. He made some progress on it, but part of it is we're just not there with IPv6. We're not there yet, so it was tough. It was tough to pull off, but hopefully soon.
Right. And what's funny is, go ahead and
what's really funny is they've already done this at Caesars. So we show up, right, and we open the fridge, and they've already got one, right? You reach in, and this happened to me last year in a foreign country. I just reached in to say, well, what is this bottle in here? And you pull it out, and all of a sudden, click, behind it, right? There was a sensor, and then all of a sudden, my bill's charged, and I've got to drink this thing. Yes. But the IPv6 fridge was thought of a long time ago by the hotel industry.
Well, I don't think it's not V6. I mean,
it's not V6.
I think there's a modem.
The telematics part.
Yeah, we found a little modem behind it, but well, yeah, somebody already did it, so maybe we could work with them. So. We own your fridge. Elite snackers. Hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.